Well, hello there, everybody. Hello again indeed. Chaz Draycott here and the wonderful Hasse Rømer on Simracersworld TV for the final round of the DynamiXX Endurance Series. We're here for the 12 hours of Spa Francorchamps, and it's been a hell of a race so far. Certainly a lot of fun. So much going on though, even with about 10 cars out there on the circuit. We hope you are all well, and we hope you have enjoyed the action so far. Thank you very much for your patience in the meantime. As you see now, we have Scott McFall out at the front, and then Didi de Vlaming in second position in the number 4 Audi after having a fantastic start. We have Thomas Layson, who was in the chat earlier in the Flemish car. He's now a little bit further down the order, but he looks all good now. Now, obviously, it's time to have our first words from Hasse Rømer. Hasse, it seems like forever.
Well, it's nice to be along, Chaz. Thanks for having me as always. It's a pleasure being alongside you, of all people. And nice to be here to round off the season of the DynamiXX Endurance Series, and as well my time on Simracersworld TV all together. It's a nice way to come in and round it off and have a bit of a farewell bit to everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's a hell of an event to round things out with as well, to be honest with you. And I mean, with the Nürburgring 24-hour going on as well, as we were discussing earlier, you know, there are a few SDK issues here and there where the timer will stop every now and then, and maybe our connection might not be perfect, but things haven't been perfect out on track for a couple of the drivers and teams. We're going to have a quick look back at a couple of incidents. It looked like some of the only moves that we saw out on track were happening from people basically gaining places in the pits. Didi de Vlaming, though, in the number 4 McChallenge car, did have this off earlier on. This is through Malmedy, having a little kiss with the barrier. Doesn't look like too much damage to the car, to be honest. And then Navarro de Bova came out of the pits a bit later on, and he actually stopped the car after having this issue down at Pouon. Back end of the car gets away, it digs forward and hits the barrier, and then he came out of the pit lane and then stopped again. I think he was maybe just staying out of the way of traffic. Apologies, that is completely the... No, it's actually saying that, yeah, he's been in and out of the pits a couple of times, and he's had that same incident down at Pouon a couple of times. Cone Bevers had a big issue. Now that is up at Eau Rouge, and that's actually the first car, sorry, Radion, that's the first car we've seen go in there today, but that's been a massive hit to the Decimo BE team. Obviously, one of the teams fighting for the championship. Cone Bevers had a stop later on around the lap as well, and that is after having the car repaired. That's down at Jackie X corner. Thomas Layson has been off for Flemish. This is going to be a big one down at Blanchimont, and the car digs in forwards. Luckily, the Lamborghini engine at the back, but still has big contact with the wall. Cone Bevers has had another hit in the Decimo BE machine. Oh, it's out of shape. Oh, it's out of shape big time, and that is a big old hit into the wall. Another issue for Navarro de Bova. Seems like they're having a lot of trouble in the latter stages of this race. Navarro's hit the wall very hard there in the Audi, and that is the most recent drama that took place, if I can find out when. Not too long ago, actually. My timing seems to have... Ah, there we go. So that was only a few minutes ago, actually, to be honest, when he had that problem. That was at the... Oh, no, apologies. That was the 6-hour, 34-minute mark. So about 25 minutes ago, and that was the last drama. So... Apologies, Hasse. We'll get to you in a sec, mate. But I'm just trying to compare where things are compared to where they were. So Didi de Vlaminck has moved up into 2nd place. Bart Parrott is now in 3rd for Dynamics Pink. Robin van Gogh is 4th in the number 2 car. Then we have Peter Lemkens in 626. They've moved up a couple of places as well. And it's Joe Leulenbroek in the 69. Sam Putterville's for Tri Racing now up to 7th. So Flemish and Decimo, well, decimated, to be honest. Decimo now the last car running in the entire field. So that's big changes in terms of the championship. That would mean that Decimo dropped down to 4th place, Flemish dropped down to 5th, and this number 4 car actually goes up into 3rd in the championship. Unbelievable.
They'll really be hoping to be able to cling on to that 2nd place. They have about 45 seconds at the moment, Chaz, and of course I don't know if their pit strategy has been skewered in any way, but they'll be hoping to avoid small mistakes like that creeping in on Didi de Vlaminck. And just try to have a smooth run all the way to the line, but that's much easier said than done here. They do have the added bonus, so to say, of a track that's slightly less congested than what you sometimes see here at Spa at endurance races. It tends to be quite hefty when you get 40-50 cars on the field. And that's not quite the case tonight, which gives a little bit more space, but it certainly doesn't clear out all mistakes altogether. As we've seen here, from what I make, that was just from an hour's worth of racing to altogether that, Chaz.
Yeah, it's the thing is, Ed and I were talking about this at the very start of the broadcast, that it's such a difficult circuit because of how high speed it is here at Spa. And, you know, if you're running a car with even medium to low downforce, then it can be an absolute pig to drive because you have to try and carry so much corner speed. And if you do get it wrong and you over-rotate the car, it can go around incredibly quickly. So, hopefully, a lot of our teams and drivers managed to get away with things. And we have had our timer actually pause again here on SDK. So I'm going to go back to the whole local connection thing at my end so we can guarantee a working overlay for you guys and girls all watching at home. So apologies if it doesn't draw the live timing straight from this, but we have just hit 7 hours of this race, Hasse. We now have 5 hours left to go here.
What tends to happen with something like 5 hours is that they'll pass by quite quickly, especially once all the drivers and the teams respectively have sort of gotten into the groove and gotten up to speed and everything, and it just seems like it's warping by often the time. Unless you're driving a race like this alone, of course, then time at this point will be going by incredibly slowly. Not something you want to have in the end, is it? But that there are, I don't know if we have any crazy souls in that regard. I don't think so. But we've heard about it before, drivers trying to do even 24-hour races on their own, which, yeah, takes something special, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Ian Plash, I think it was, the YouTuber who was known as RAR Chevette, and he was always doing the Daytona 24 hours solo for charity. There's a few other drivers that have started doing that as well. I don't think anyone's done the... Actually, no, there are probably some crazy people that have done Nürburgring 24 hours solo as well. But to be honest with you, they are all absolute heroes, because even in a team of like 4, we still found it difficult the times that we ran the race. And I'm sure you've done a handful of them as well, have you not? The 24-hour or even 12-hour races?
Yeah, I have. I've done the Nürburgring on a few occasions. I've done 24 hours of Spa, I've done Le Mans, I've done 12 hours of Sebring, I've done Petit Le Mans as well, and actually managed to finish on the podium on a few occasions in some middle split somewhere for people with 2.4 KI rating, but regardless, it still feels like a major achievement, and it's such a great thing altogether to just come together with your mates and have a good time. Of course, you don't always have a good time. That pretty much goes without saying, but then in the end, you sort of do anyways, and it's just a special thing. It's really nice, and I do cherish it.
Yeah, the thing with some of those events as well is the fact that, you know, when you are involved in them, and even when you're watching them, you know, you feel the sort of sense of how big an event it is. you know, you see all of the people from different teams and different groups, different friendship groups, different communities all around the world, and even just different nationalities. You know, you see everybody all getting on and having the same event go on. You know, you get this real sense that it's like one big party. It's not always a party, because sometimes tempers flare and it can be very stressful racing in such a big event like that. But you know, you do get this massive sense of how big an event it can be. It's certainly a lot of fun, and if there are anybody watching, or if there are any viewers watching that haven't raced in things like that before, then honestly, if you do get the chance to race in like an iRacing special event or something like that, do it. It's so cool. Even if, you know, even if you're one of these people that thinks, so it's only sim racing, you know, it's not the real thing, trust us, the atmosphere, even if it's just you still at home, you know, if there's nobody else there doing it with you, or just your teammates online, it's still so exciting, isn't it, Hasse?
Yeah, it is, and especially when you start getting used to the format and how to approach these races as well, it just becomes more and more of a joy, I think. And it can really make for some fantastic experiences. And I've had races where all drivers sort of made mistakes here and there, but we were fast on pace and mistakes aside, pretty consistent, and you're able to scramble together a result regardless in the end. It's just a different format of racing altogether, in terms of comparing endurance racing to any sort of sprint racing, really, as well. Because it's so many times that you have to thread the needle that even if you might be able to do it 20 times in a row for a sprint race, are you going to be able to do it 80 or 100 or maybe even 400 times consecutively if you really, really push? You sort of need to get in the mindset of just driving to sort of 97 or 98% of both your own and the car's combined capabilities, you know, and sort of find that limit and find that zone of relative comfort. But of course, you can't really relax. You have to stay on it, but you also have to keep it somewhat safe. And of course, some drivers are just instinctively better at this than others.
Yeah, that's it. Getting into a rhythm is never easy, but you do get certain drivers that can just snap into a rhythm, and then, unfortunately for them, sometimes they can snap out of it. But getting straight into a rhythm is really not easy at all. And you know, I'm an incredibly inconsistent driver whenever I'm in the sim. You know, I could put the odd quick lap in, that'll be all right. You know, it's nothing that's going to sort of light up the timing screens, but you know, in terms of my overall pace, I will have like an optimal lap, and then after that it may just crumble a little bit, and I'm never that consistent. But you know, I enjoy playing it safe in events like this, you know, making sure the car gets to the end. I'll never push too hard and be completely over the limit. I would rather get a setup, as a lot of people would, that I know I can still push it a bit, but have a limit. You know, it's got a very, very distinct and easy to read limit. I think that's what's important about, especially cars like these GT3 cars.
Yeah, indeed. And actually, funny thing you were mentioning about Spa, that it's a difficult track to drive, even though it doesn't maybe feel that hard to just go around, or it's a track that most drivers will know quite well compared to a lot of other circuits, at least. But there is this thing, and especially I feel like in the GT3 cars, it seems like everything with any more downforce than a GT3 is going to have an easier time handling the Eau Rouge Raidillon complex, and it's going to have a much easier time down at Blanchimont as well, with Pouhon also being a really tricky corner in these cars, especially because they do have the downforce, they do have the ability to go quite quickly if you do things correctly. But if you unsettle the car in a long left-hander like this at, well, 200 kilometers an hour plus, that thing is going to go either left or right, but very quickly indeed. And you're not going to have much chance to really correct things in the end. And especially Blanchimont, I feel like in these GT3s, especially the mid-engine ones, I've had my fair share of dark moments down there as well at the official 24 hours of Spa.
Yeah, you and me both, mate. Corners like that, 130R especially, you know, Eau Rouge Raidillon, as we alluded to before, all can be absolute nightmares in mid-engined and rear-engine cars. This is Joe Leulenbroek having a moment of his own down at Pouhon. Long slide, and he's... Oh, I was going to say he's lucky not to have hit the barrier there, but the illusion of it going away certainly outdid me. Doesn't look like any damage actually to the car. It was just a light kiss on the barrier. And then Robin van Gogh has had a similar moment. It seems like with the track temperature, it's just becoming more and more tricky down there. He has a bigger hit into the wall, though. Damages the left rear of the car. We'll have to go back and have a look. Yeah, it's still crumpled in there, actually, isn't it? Unfortunately, quite a bit of damage. But, yeah, look, the car's not behaving itself. Let's check the weather. Wow, the track temperature, since we last checked, has come down by 9 degrees over the last hour and a half. So, it's now at the point where the sun is starting to go down here, Hasse. And it's getting cooler, so lap times may actually come back to us.
Yeah, and that's what you expect as well. I think as a driver that at some point it's going to be easier to find the grip. It's going to be easier to especially make the tires last. Maybe even for the first part of it, just for one stint. But as the darkness creeps in and temperatures cool even further, we might even see teams and drivers being able to double stint their tires towards the end of the race. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a thing. At least if the drivers that are smooth on their inputs, they probably should be able to pull that off at the end of the proceedings here.
It's just great to watch these cars make their way around, though. Of course, more shadows out there on the circuit now as well. The shadows are getting longer, the sun is getting lower, and we are going to start to, over the next couple of hours at least, get into the whole sort of twilight time here on the broadcast. And then we will finish the race at night. Sounded like somebody's engine just let go then. There was a certain bang in the pit lane. Navarro de Bova is in the pits and has been there for a while now. He's been in there for 37 minutes. So it looks like that car is having real trouble. Koen Bevers is actually out of the race. The Decimo BE car is actually gone. So that is big for the championship because they will not score points in the 451 machine, which will put them way down the order as far as I know. Because, well, they're not going to get any, are they? Wow. Big DNF for them. I'll try and figure out the points as we go now because, well, that's blown it wide open, hasn't it? Flipping heck.
Yeah, absolutely so. And it's, you know, it's never over till it's really over. And we can make all sorts of assumptions on what would happen if the race were to be called off at the moment. But it's sometimes it stands, as you would probably know pretty well yourself. But you never know what's going to happen. And even along the final 4 or 5 hours of a race like this, a lot of stuff can still go down. Someone might have picked up a slight bit of engine damage at some point. Uses. But we could see people blowing an engine, or even though it's rare in the GT3s, they seem to be very reliable as well. It does tend to happen from time to time, especially when the race distances creep up towards the 12-hour mark.
Yeah, and one interesting thing that I've noticed recently, I actually was commentating with Ed May when we saw it happen in person. I say in person, you know, in the sim. But when you have a GT3 car and you park it in the pits for a long time, eventually, if you just sit it there, the engine will blow up. Now, the oil pressure drops, the engine might not even be on, but it will just blow up in the back of the car out of nowhere. It can be quite entertaining, but other times, obviously, very frustrating. Now, I want to have a quick look at our top 4 cars here and just check their individual pit stop strategies, and you can see the different ones that stand out there are Van Gogh. Their first stint is what set them off from the rest. 19 laps for them on that one. 22 laps for the McChallenge by DB car at the bottom there. And then they had that tiny stint where they just did a couple of laps, and it's really set them off against the rest again there. So it sort of compacted it all together, put them maybe half a stop early, but yeah, certainly the main consistency there is coming from first and second, isn't it? The Dynamics Pink car and the Sim District GT3 by Vibe BMS Esport Machine, as ever.
Just noticing a thing as well here with the 2 Sim District cars, that the sort of damaged Audi, and I think it's not going to be able to keep up. Certainly it isn't there, Robin van Gogh. In a bit of trouble as well with his car, I'm afraid. but was able to take a good bit of slipstreaming from his teammate down the Camel Straight. Here in the middle sector, you can really see the pace differential. Scott McFall is pulling away. There is a reason they are a lap ahead of everybody else in the field.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, isn't it, really, the fact that they've done that again. They did it in a 6-hour race a couple of times this season where they've lapped everybody. But now, of course, over that 6-hour mark, 7 hours into this escapade here around Spa. And the closest 2 cars on track are actually this machine, the number 2 of Robin van Gogh, and car 4P for Jeremy de Bove in the McChallenge by DB Audi. And I am well up for a battle between those two of the very best teams in the series. And right now, it looks like, because of the damage, Robin is starting to lose a bit of time. Comes into the bus stop once again. Nice and chill. Tries to keep it under control. You'll probably think that they'll try and fix that damage when it comes to the next pit stop, won't you? The next sort of scheduled stop, at least.
Yeah, I'd expect so. Sorry, I was just munching a bit here, which we all do from time to time. But yeah, indeed, it to a certain extent. I mean, it's always you try to do the equation of say how much time are we losing per lap, and how long is it going to take to fix it? And even if we fix it, how much is it actually going to fix? Because we also know that some of the body parts, and especially on the GT3 machines at least, is basically irreplaceable for some reason. And even though I think iRacing is slowly implementing a newer damage model across the board, these GT3s still run with the older one, meaning that some of that aero damage might not be able to become fully good again anyways. So while they might take, and there's certainly, the thing is that you can also sort of bleed off the repairs as the pit stops goes on. So if, say, you have a minute and 20, and every time you take tires as well, it's going to take a few seconds off of the repairs, you can get that done over the course of the race without really losing extra time as well.
Yeah, it all sort of adds up in these sorts of races, doesn't it? But not always for the best. You know, if you do have one thing that's a bit of a setback, then it can just snowball a lot as the race goes on. You know, you can, as me and Marcus were talking about earlier, if you have an incident, it can get to your head, you can drive angry, you can lose your confidence, and you can push a bit too hard. And then from then on, you'll just keep making mistakes, and stuff will continue to happen to the car that'll be detrimental to it getting to the end. And that's so important to make sure that you manage that. And some drivers and some teams, unfortunately, when they do have a setback, they find it harder than others to overcome it, don't they?
Yeah, it's quite different to see what kind of team spirit really lives in the different teams. And for some teams, I think it's at some point in a race, it's going to be the natural thing to do to sort of throw the towel in the ring, where in other teams, the mix of personalities that you get in the team will give you a unit that'll never give up, you know, and that's going to give you quite a lot, I think, in the end. I think often, especially if you have an early race incident or two, even in a race like this, you can still claw back something. You just gotta try to get back in the rhythm as well as you can. And of course, it all comes down to whether the car is running well. Because I think if the car is sort of terminally damaged and its steering angle is all crooked and it's not going in a nice way at all, it sort of also makes sense to throw in the towel at sometimes, at least. You know, there's a time for all of these sort of things, and but obviously we want to see the teams fight till the last drop of blood, indeed. And those who do are often also duly rewarded. So that's sort of the carrot at the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, the metaphor of carrot on a stick is definitely what these drivers and teams chase. You can see a number of them at the moment, though, Scott McFall in particular, just there down through Pouhon, very, very close to the curb, but not touching it on the outside. Now, we've seen him do that. He's very much on that curb there and on that one there, but we've seen a number of drivers starting to avoid that curb on the exit of Pouhon, and rightly so. I mean, we've had a few cars, I think it was actually the Decimo BE car earlier, that hit the end of that curb and it flung it into the wall. Cone Bevers certainly, well, being actually quite the race breaker there, unfortunately for him. You know, he was pushing very hard by the look of it, but the circuit's just been really greasy, really slippery in these later stages, I think.
Yeah, and there is also a thing about the setups here at Spa that a lot of teams and a lot of drivers as well like to have a setup that's sort of flung as low to the ground as possible, but that it's not always the best if you want something that can handle the curbs as well. So it often comes down to setup as well as of course base car dynamics, so to say. And some setups will instinctively just ride the curbs better than others. And I think that particular curb on the exit of Pouhon, I think it's not the worst one, but of course there is a particular bump though at the end of that. If you hit that, you'll get slung along and you'll have no chance, I think, of regaining control. Bar really good luck, perhaps, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. I think the amount of cars that I've seen hit that and then bounce off either to the right or to the left, you know, if I had a quid for every single one I've seen, I would probably be quite a wealthy man. Usually, the cars hit it in straight line, and then the driver, in correcting it, I should say, throws it over to the right-hand side, or the car is already completely out of control and throws itself at the barrier on the left-hand side. But yeah, it's certainly one of the trickier parts of the circuit. We'll go on board with Jeremy DeBova right now, actually, on the nose of this gorgeous number 4 Audi. And as Olivier Bultink has very rightly pointed out in chat, the BMW and the Ferrari do not care about curbs. And you're right, you know, the BMW especially in previous races has not given a damn about certain curbs. We went to Montreal and it was just, well, almost untouchable over the curbs there. It just dealt with them so well. But unfortunately for some of the teams, they just struggled to just find that extra bit of pace out of it and push it hard enough, if you know what I mean. They just didn't quite unlock the potential of what that BMW has in its locker.
Yeah, and the BMW, just with the dynamics of a big engine, well, it's not that big actually, but a front engine car like that with the size that it has as well, is just going to instinctively, I think, aid it over any sort of instability in that regard. As here comes Jeremy DeBova onto the Paul Frère straight down towards the section of track that I find the most challenging in a GT3 car. As I mentioned before, Blanchimont, such a hard corner. It's the slightest mistake is going to throw you off. It's not going to be flat, but if you lift too much, you'll find the rear wanting to rotate on you as well. So you have to stay committed. You have to stay on the throttle. And if you lift, you have to lift before the corner. You cannot lift mid-corner. The rear is going to come around in an Audi R8 like this, or especially the Porsche 911 as well. And that's sort of a, like, the more scared you are of the corner, the more dangerous it becomes, and that's quite terrifying in itself, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And every single time you turn in after that, even if you do have a little bit of a moment and you manage to save it, every time you go through that corner after that, you will then think, oh no, what's it going to do this time? You know, you'll always be on the back foot thinking, the car is in control here, not me. You know, the car is basically deciding our fate, and I have to just put up with how it's behaving and, well, deal with it if I end up in the barrier. Right now, we see our race leader coming out of the pit lane. Scott McFall continuing on this fantastic drive for Sim District GT3 by Vibe BMS Esport. And once again, they are leading the pack. They have won every race so far this season. Lights to flag with very little drama. They had one spin a little bit earlier in the race, and they previously had problems at Monza, which was just, again, a small spin. But this Lamborghini has looked very untouchable time and time again. It's been on our screens a lot during the 90-minute break that I just had before. And it continues to be on our screens once again. It's certainly a great place to be up at the front, isn't it? And these guys, well, they don't know much different in this championship.
Well, they came fresh from a 3-hour race yesterday at Spa as well, in the virtual Belcar series, where they were indeed also contesting for top positions all the way through in a very, very spicy field. So not really surprised, I must say, to see them where they are, doing things in a very cool, calm and collected manner. So far, I think it's been, from what I've seen as well from Scott McFall, it's been faultless.
I like that. I like that. We came up with a name earlier as well, because we've seen from Scott and from Olivier, when they are coming to the end of their stint, they will just randomly bang out an incredibly quick lap when they know that that's the last one they're going to make on the fuel. When the car is light on fuel and the tyres aren't that worn in, they will do a lightning quick in-lap before they pit. And we couldn't ever think of it. Like Ed was referring to, obviously, moments with Lewis Hamilton where they call it hammer time. And we came up with the idea of calling it the Bull Run, because not only is it Bull Tink, but it's also a Lamborghini. And as we all know, it is the Raging Bull. So we started calling it the Bull Run.
We're going to call it Pamplona time, indeed.
Well, it's certainly...
That is, of course, the city in the northern part of Spain where the Bull Run originates, if I'm not completely mistaken. Yeah. It's also the birthplace of legendary cyclist Miguel Indurain as well. Just a bit of trivia for you out there on Pamplona. Not too far away, actually, from where I've traveled a fair bit of myself in Spain, in the neighboring region to the south, which is the smallest region in Spain. It's called La Rioja, very famous for its wine production, and you will certainly, unless you say no to it, of course, but you will at least be offered quite a lot of wine when going about in that region. And the wine is very good, I must admit. Fantastic food as well. And for a northerner like myself, the prices felt like they were humane, and you could actually afford to go out and get something nice to eat. You know, and that's just it was a really nice place to go, as well as a nice place to ride my bicycle, of course, which was at all times the main event, so to say. Here's Who's Franken for RP Motorsports, 6th place at the moment. They seem to be going about on their business. Chaz, I'm looking at the gap between Mac Challenge and Sim District at the moment, and it's not really changed. No. Still hovering around those 14-15 seconds or so. Even with the damage that Robin van Gogh here is carrying, he isn't really faced too hard by it. Lap times look very consistent. Actually, on the last lap, Jeremy de Boer did claw back about half a second, maybe even a little bit more. But it's all about the consistency here, and I think Robin van Gogh is making many missteps at the moment.
No, he's just cracking on with it, isn't he, and just getting the job done. I mean, there's only a few drivers out there that are really in a position to challenge him, but Robin's keeping that damage to a minimum. It certainly, I imagine, looks worse than it is anyway, I think.
Yeah, and if he really keeps it together, the Dynamics pink car is 26 seconds up the road at the moment, so certainly not untouchable in any way either. The Dynamics pink Porsche, which we haven't seen much of, to be honest, have we?
No.
Sort of just doing their own thing out there. There it is, still in one piece, the 88 Porsche, and I must admit, the Audi sounds good and everything, but the flat six of the Porsche 911 to me is just something a little bit different. Very well modeled in iRacing as well. If you've ever seen an onboard lap here from the 24 hours of Spa, maybe from Nürburgring, be surprised at just how precise the rendition of the engine notes are.
Yeah, they do certainly sound good, don't they, these Porsches? They always have done, and, you know, Ed and I, again, we're talking about the RSR earlier on, the incredible GTE machine that we've all come to know and love, and unfortunately won't be seeing for much longer in our World
even
Circuits.
in iRacing, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's going, I'm afraid.
It is such a shame. But, you know, what we were saying about GT3s and GTEs, when you compare the two, I think as much as I like turning the ABS off a lot in GTEs and, you know, giving that little inside wheel that bit of slip and a bit of a lock-up, I do just prefer a GT3, if I'm honest with you. I hate the feeling of ABS making your car go in a straight line, but I just think GT3s, there's just something about the way they look. You know, there's only tiny differences to the GTE cars, but I just always think that the extra little winglets and extra little fiddly bits on GT3 cars make them look fantastic.
I've always been a big fan of the GTs from a driver's perspective. I think they were great machines to drive. But obviously from an overall racing perspective, and especially for the privateer teams that run these machines in real life, it's going to make so much more sense to just get that massive cost reduction that comes with a much more standardized product in the form of a GT3 car compared to the GTEs that have been run at Le Mans for many years now, actually, and it's gonna be a different era with speeds generally in the decline on Le Mans as well. It's gonna be fitting, I think, to have these new, what is it gonna be called, Chaz, GT Plus or GT3 Plus, or is that?
I think it's just GT Pro, is it not? Or something like that.
GT Pro, yeah, that might be. That might be the thing.
There's been a lot of different classes and things over a long time, to be fair. I remember when, I can't remember what sort of time period it was, actually. I'm sure there was a GT3 class in something called the Tudor Series or something like that in America. TUDOR. I can't remember what it was, what the precise thing was now, but they had like the usual like GTLM, GT Pro, GTD classes, things like that, and it's just all these different names for it, and I'm just sat there thinking, I'd just call it like Pro and Am and just have it as GT3 cars. It's just simpler that way.
Yeah, but that's another thing that's great to see with the new car rules that's come into place for both the World Endurance Championship and IMSA alike, and the transferability of cars between the two series, so people will be able to run Le Mans as well as Daytona, which I think has been a contributing factor, though. So that's, we've got so many manufacturers coming in as well, which is going to be great to see. Joel Erlenbrook here, 5th place at the moment, sort of like everybody else just about now. Chaz, a little bit Robinson Crusoe, would I say, sort of a little bit of an island doing their own thing, far away from one another at least. They don't have to really take each other's presence into mind, so to say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we look at the track map at the moment, you can see just how spread out some of these cars are. We unfortunately only have the top 8 cars running now, which at Spa Francorchamps is quite a lonely circuit to be on, to be honest with you. But right now, I'm pretty sure, as mentioned, the teams will be happy with the fact that they can just push the lap times out and just get the car around as quickly as possible. Scott McFall continues to be the fastest guy on track, and Olivier Bultink continues to absolutely nail it on the head while his teammates out there, because Olivier has mentioned that the GT3 Aston Martin V12 Vantage was a crazy nice sound, and you are not wrong. I was really happy when I first got a Assetto Corsa Competizione and realised that the older V12 version of the Vantage GT3 was on there. The amount of times I drove that around the Hungaro ring or Zolder and just went really close to the pit wall just so I could hear it even more down the straight was countless. Hell of a fantastic car. And to be honest, Hasse, I think we could probably go on about it forever, so it's probably a good time to talk about it. What would you say is your favourite GT3 car of all time?
That's a relatively tough one. But it's probably gonna be one of the Porsches, to be honest. It's sort of the, to me at least, it's sort of the original GT3 car, the Porsche 911 as well, from the mid-late 1990s as GT2 was coming to an end, and Porsche was going naturally aspirated on the racing machines as well. But there's been a lot of iconic GT3 machines over the times. The Aston Martin has to be up there. The Audi here certainly has to be up there as well. And as such, some of the BMWs as well along the times has been quite glorious, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, cars like the BMW Z4 GT3, you know, it was a car I didn't actually see. I saw one not long ago, actually, racing in the British Endurance Championship at Alton Park, and that fantastic rumble and sort of growling sound from the V8 engine is a very, very unique sounding car. You know, the M6 that BMW made as well was a hell of a car. It's won the Nürburgring 24 hours as well. I think in terms of the best sounding GT3 cars, you have to go back quite a while to... Actually, you know what? I'm not even sure. It was classified as GT3 when it first was about. Yes, it isn't called the GT3, but it was actually homologated for GT3, and it actually had a BMW S62 V8 engine. The Ascari KZ1R was a GT3 car that I saw when GT3 first sort of came about. It was racing in the British GT Championship at Alton Park, the number 22 machine. I think it was Paul and Godfrey Jones racing it. And what an amazing rumble that thing made. It was fantastic. But it wasn't as pretty as it sounded, unfortunately. It didn't go great either, to be honest with you. However, that team then replaced that car. It was Preki Spark was their livery. But they replaced that with what I think is the prettiest GT3 car ever made, and that's the McLaren 650S GT3. It's an absolute dream machine, that thing. I think the proportions of it, just the gentle, smooth look of it, insane. Insanely pretty car.
Absolutely so. It does it so much justice being turned into a race car. It just...
Oh, yeah.
It makes so much sense, right? It just seems perfect. As it is, as such, is that Tri-Racing coming to unlap themselves on RP Motorsports?
Yeah, I think they are,
That is what it looks like to me, Chaz.
Yeah, it does certainly
take into consideration if they have some kind of pace in that Porsche 911, running with no damage apparently on the car. Would they be able to claw something back on the cars ahead? They are a fair bit away behind, aren't they? And yeah.
Yeah, at the end
it's
of the day,
always hard.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, when you fall behind early on, it can be a right nightmare because you're spending the whole race then on the back foot, and it's not a nice place to be in. But you know, there are teams out there, and we've seen them all year and all season, that they can bring back some brilliant performances. You know, they don't just sit there and sort of wallow in self-pity or whatever the phrase is at the back of the pack. You know, they get back in the car and they crack on with it. You know, they just push and push and push, and they're the best sorts of teams that you really need in a championship like this, because even when it's not going their way, they will carry on going and they will make sure that the grid stays strong wherever they can. Just looking at Sam Porterville's though, sitting behind the RP Motorsport Verde Audi, which unfortunately for them is only 2 places ahead. Thomas Layson is just up the road, 45 seconds ahead at the moment he is. And I'm sure that he will be hoping that that gap stays about the same. And yes, Olivier Boulting has also agreed with the Z4 GT3. It's, yeah, not even close to a GT car, but it was close to unbeatable. And if I'm honest with you, looking at all GT3 cars and comparing them to their road-going counterparts, that is the biggest transformation I think we've all seen. Wouldn't you agree? From one to the next.
The Z4, yeah, definitely it is. Such a different machine that there's hardly any resemblance left of the road-going machine. And it looks like something that is partway somebody's that sort of made a modern race car out of an old school machine, because that's what I've always seen the the Z4 Coupe, as at least it sort of had these lines that were reminiscent, at least, of something that would have been created in the 1950s.
Yeah, it had a bit of a round, soft shape to it, didn't it? And when they facelifted the front, it didn't do a massive amount for it, to be honest. But I think there's, I mean, if you're talking about big transformations from GT3s, one to, like, from the road car, the Morgan Aero 8 has got to be up there as well. The Bentley GT3 as well. But, I mean, I remember that it's one of my favourite stats ever about the Bentley Continental GT3 is that they take 1.5 tons out of the road car in comparison to the GT3. Now, that is, like, a big family-sized car anyway, isn't it?
That it is. That's a perfectly decently sized family saloon nowadays. I think it's quite incredible. Yeah, it truly is. I actually saw one of those driving around in Copenhagen today, and it struck me as well as to just how radically different, not just in terms of looks and appearance, but also in terms of what kind of a car it is compared to at least the GT3s that we have on the grid here today. It's sort of come from being this ultimate luxury cruiser to a purpose-built it mightn't be, but a race car nonetheless, and actually one that's seen a decent amount of success, and perhaps even as well the originator of the boat meme. Yeah. the biggest of boys. It's gotten competition by BMW, who obviously didn't want to be outdone in terms of size by anyone, but we've seen some big machines, haven't we, in GT3 over the last few years, especially.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, coming back to my little trip down to Alton Park just last week, I mean, there was a 2007 Viper GTSR GT3 car, and you know, the Viper was that long and that wide that it still had the 8.4 litre V10 in the front of it. It's an absolute whopper of a machine, but still, it's an absolutely great race car. And I believe one won the British GT Championship with James Gornall driving it in 2008. So it's certainly a potent race car. There was a lot of them in 2008, racing things like the Lamborghini Gallardo and the Ferrari F430. Sam Puttervilles manages to put a move on the RP Audi and unlap themselves. He can now hopefully guilt-free move forward and crack on with this. And yep, Olivier Bultink has very correctly said that the Maserati was the first homologated GT3 car. That was the Gran Turismo, I think. Maserati Gran Turismo when they brought that car out. Another car that I believe was homologated to be GT3. Was it the Venturi? Wasn't the Atlantic, was it? That was before GT3, but it was the Venturi. I think it was just called the Venturi Heritage, wasn't it? It looked like a French Ferrari F40.
That card says absolutely nothing to me, Chaz. I've never heard about that machine before.
I will have a look at one. Actually, it looked like a French Ferrari 355, to be honest with you. Venturi used to make the Atlantique LM, which was a Le Mans car at heart, and it was a great car. But yeah, I've actually found a picture of one here. I'll pop it in our little Discord chat that we have to discuss things during the race, and you'll see
that looks a lot like the old Venturi as well.
Yeah,
the one that we all, I think, fondly remember from Gran Turismo 2.
Yeah,
where it was not really that fast, but really, really difficult race car to drive.
Yeah, that was the old Atlantic 400, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Great looking car, just French, unfortunately. And yeah, as Olivier Bultink has reminded us, it was in GT1 at the time. It was indeed, back when GT1 was a thing. Oh, do you remember those Lamborghinis? Anyway.
I was about to say that earlier, Chaz. My heart really, in terms of GT cars, GT1s were the one they were beating for. Joel Erlenberg's gone and messed it up there, though.
Whoa. They fell back off my chair then. But, yeah, Scott McFall makes it through Blanchimont without the same issues. But, you know, those little spins, the little kisses with the barrier, we've seen a number of them so far. And some of the cars, some of the teams, they seem to be able to get away with it. And if I'm honest with you, there's been a couple that, it's just been like when they get to Blanchimont, it all goes to pot.
Yeah, and that's it is these. You know, Spa is just a relatively safe track with 3 pitfalls, and Scott McFall comes through one of them here, especially as I mentioned earlier in the GT3s. If you go into something like an LMP2 around here, you'll find that it's a lot more relaxing. At least so I think. Maybe everybody won't agree, but I think so, and it's because it just has so much downforce, regardless of setup, basically, that you can hammer it flat through both Blanchimont, Eau Rouge and Radion, and it's really no problem at all. Of course, you got to be wary of the curbs and but a lot of the time as well, it's when you get in a racing situation, for instance, someone insisting on going too wide through Blanchimont. That's always a hair racing moment to have to live through.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
Bart Perret. He's doing a good job, really stringing together the bus stop in the final sector.
Still 1.2 seconds off Scott McFall, lap after lap here. Incredible. And, wow, Olivier Boulting throwing us a real curveball of a GT car. The Vertigo Gilet GT3.
Oh, yeah!
Oh,
From Gran Turismo 3 as well and onwards.
I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to say that that's one of the most hideous cars I've ever seen.
that car, well, it looked a bit like some of the Marcus race cars of those times as well, of the GT1s, which weren't always fantastic as well to look at. But certainly the Vertigo with the very large and like disproportionately large headlights. That certainly gave it a bit of a weird face alongside the bonnet that was kind of crept down on itself. They had some kind of crazy version of that car, like up to 900 horsepower or something.
Flip it out.
At least so it was in the game, but I seem to remember stories about that part of it actually being sort of true. I don't know, of course, but a crazy car indeed to look at, and probably to drive as well. But it was just a time of some crazy creations indeed. We had the Lister Storm.
Oh,
we
yeah.
had the Marcos. What was that even called?
There was 2 actually. There was the Marcos Mantis, which was the earlier one, which was the narrower of the 2 cars. That used to race in, I think, GT2 class. But then there was also the crazy Marcos Mantara LM600, which was the Le Mans car, where drivers complained that they couldn't see over the bonnet.
Exactly.
There was a big lump in the middle.
That's the car I was thinking about.
It's so wide and so low.
They had to cram a huge engine into it, and all of a sudden the drivers couldn't see out the front. Oh, it's the where with the other Mac Challenge by DB. I thought there were problems for the car.
Yeah,
currently
apologies.
in 4th place. They've dropped back a little bit, Chaz. The gap is now 16.8 seconds to Sim District up ahead.
I thought I had a connection issue there, because all of a sudden it went quiet. It went very quiet. Yes, the Mosler MT900R. However, there's multiple specs of that Mosler, and there's one with a really low little wing on it, and I don't think it looked that good. I think the ones with the bigger wings were the one that really looked the part, but that car was never like... I mean, if we go and look at... look at the Porsche. Look at the arches, the wheel arches on the Porsche, like how wide they stick out of the body and how chunky it looks and how flat. The Mosler was completely flat down the sides, flat along the top. You know, it didn't have much shape to it. It was a cool car, but it was missing something, I think, as a GT car. They did great in the British GT Championship, but yeah, I think it was missing something, that's for sure. Now, we've had a comment come in as well from Dynamics themselves. Great to see you in the chat. Now, they're saying that the Murcielago GT3 had the best sound. I think you're meaning the GT1, because I don't think... Did they do a GT3 version of the Murcielago? I saw a Murcielago today. No, not today. Yesterday. On the way back from... Where was I? I was dropping my son off somewhere yesterday. But the Murcielago RGT was, I think, a GT1 car. And then they did when they went over to GT3, they sort of downgraded to the smaller, more nimble Gallardo, which was, I mean, a hell of a car, to be honest with you. A really, really amazing car. Again, very successful.
Yeah, as well. In those earlier days of GT3, the cars were much closer to road spec as well. At least that's how I recall it, and it sort of evolved along the way to something that definitely doesn't resemble a road car all that much. But the GT1 cars were fantastic. The GT1 sort of prototype era that came just before it was just as fantastic, if you ask me as well. The cars that went to be... Was that what directly became the LMP 900s afterwards, as they were no longer called? Or was that GTLM or no? Oh, I'm getting confused now.
That's a good point, actually. I'm trying to think now. I always do this. I want to try and rack my brain for any memory of it before I try and Google it.
Yeah, but they were called GT1 until 1998, if I recall correctly, and then it was changed to something, and the regulations were slightly changed, and that's when we had the Mercedes CLR, and we had the first year of the Toyota TSO 50.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was called LMP 900 or whatever it was. I think it was LM 900, something along those lines, because they weren't GT cars at that point then. They were making them into proper, like, purpose-built race cars, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly, and they were removing some of the need for homologation and especially the need for creating road-going variants, because it was becoming clear, I think, to the FIA as well as the constructors in the mid to late 1990s that the whole thing about having to make a Porsche 911 GT1 road car or a Mercedes CLK GTR road car was just absolutely insane, and that no people in their right mind would ever buy these cars for actually driving them on the streets and roads of the world, because it would just be utterly uncomfortable and crazy to drive one of those cars around.
Yeah, it would
but
indeed.
they made for some fantastic race cars to watch, and I think some of the prettiest prototypes, because I still label these cars as prototypes. Some of the prettiest prototypes that we've ever had.
Yeah, definitely. You know, some of the curves and the wings and the aerodynamic setups of some of the cars like that were absolutely amazing. Dynamics saying they love GTR2, the game as well. Yeah, fantastic, absolute classic. I only played it for a short time, you know, when I first had it, and then I never really went back on it. I might have to get it out again and do some laps, because while it's not the prettiest game in the world, you know, you've got to consider how old that game is now, and for the time it's still a good sim even now, you know, so many people do it. Over 200 laps done, by the way, now, Hasse, and we are nearly at 2/3 race distance here. 7 hours and 51 minutes completed, nearly at 8 hours of completion. We'll be then here for another, well, maybe another hour from now, because at about 10 to the hour is when we switch over. So once we have completed this next hour or so, then it will be already time to bid farewell. I tell you what, time flies when it's having fun, mate, and we always certainly do that, don't we?
Yeah, indeed, and there's nothing like going back into the memoirs and the distant days of old, when everything was just rose-tinted and a lot better, even though it probably wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, the GT racing both wasn't, and, you know, it kind of, like, to be honest, for instance, at Le Mans, the GT races, like the GT classes for themselves at Le Mans, over the many, like I cannot remember a year where we haven't seen some fantastic action between the GT cars at Le Mans, racing really, really close with tires on the grass and going too wide through Indianapolis and stuff like that. We were thinking, you know, that's not easily done and stuff. It's quite impressive to see, and in that term, I think we've been blessed with a really good period of racing. And it'll be thrilling to see how the next rendition of GTs to attack Le Mans is going to be like.
Yeah, definitely. It's always going to be interesting to see how they develop from time to time. But when you do look back at like different periods of racing, it can become very apparent that it's not always the easiest of things for them to sort of re-regulate, is it? To try and keep racing good. You know, nobody likes change, so people are never going to sort of like the new regulations they see or new cars. You know, F1 with the big change recently has been under a bit of fire, but I think the racing's been good. But one thing to consider...
Under a bit of fire? What are you talking about?
Oh,
I haven't seen either fire or smoke.
I know a number of people that hate it.
They must live on another planet, Chaz. I don't see how that can possibly be the opinion. First of all, the new cars look fantastic.
They do. They do look amazing.
When I saw the Ferrari, when that was revealed,
yeah.
I immediately saw the 1991, 1992 Ferraris in front of me. Like the concept, it was just, this is a Formula One car again.
Yeah, definitely.
And it hasn't been a Formula One car for me. It hasn't been a Formula One car proportionally, you know, for a long time. This is a Formula One car again. And that's really nice to see. So that's one part of it, aesthetically. Second of all, we've seen some fantastic racing as well already, you know. And I think and hope that they'll figure out to sort of either balance DRS or maybe even just get rid of it completely, because, you know, that would be my only point of critique, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the new regulations. You know, DRS has been there for a while, and it's sort of creating some kind of artificial racing, right? Where it's ultimately, I think, not what anybody wants to see, and I'd love to see them be able to get rid of it as well, and still have racing that's nice and close, as we've seen over the first opening rounds here.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that the cars can follow a lot more closely is brilliant. You know, it's what we've needed for a long time, but now that they can follow closely, DRS is massively exaggerated, so I agree that they could probably get rid of it. You know, and we'll see some incredible racing even on top of what we've got now. Main thing for me is that the cars are shorter. You know, I saw a comparison video. I'm not quite sure whose channel it was on, but somebody was stood next to, I think it was Alonso's 2006 championship winning Renault, and then the new Alpine from this year. And they looked at one car, then looked at the other. They are massive now. I mean, F1 cars were never small. You know, they're not small, tiny cars, but they're absolutely humongous now, and it's frightening, the size of the things. And it makes me worry about Grand Prix like Monaco and even the street circuits that we're going to now. You know, there's more and more of them popping up. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I'm just thinking that the cars are too big for them now. It's going to become like... I've got no problem with Formula E before I say this, but a lot of the circuits in Formula E are just... they're too narrow, they're rubbish. Like, it's going to become like that, and with the cars as big as they are, that worries me. But, you know, I don't want to get political over that, because if we look back at, you know, our era of Formula One, as I'm going to call it, Hasse, you know, the 90s, probably the best era for Formula One in terms of how good the cars looked, how exciting the racing was. But, you know, you look back at it now, and those rose-tinted glasses are definitely there. You know, you look at the race results, and it's like Villeneuve wins by 57 seconds from Schumacher, and then the next car's a lap behind him.
Yeah, it wasn't very interesting at that point either, to be honest. It was at best a 3-horse race, as it is now as well. I think, for me, actually, I think Formula One is more exciting nowadays than it maybe was. Yeah. But it's just... There is a purity to the sport that's been lost over the last, 10 years. And I think since Liberty Media took over, even just that Formula One theme nowadays, sort of cringy, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, I feel like it's sort of cringy every time I hear it. I don't think I've ever said it. I don't think I've ever really told anyone how I feel about it and how strongly I actually despise the modern Formula One theme, because it sort of injects the feelings into you. Like, you cannot, oh, it's so grand and stuff. Like, Chaz, we've spoken about the old 1990s Formula One theme song or little piece of theme music. There was the intro.
Oh yeah,
wow, back in the 90s. Yes.
That thing. That was the loudest thing ever to go through the TV as well.
That was fantastic, you know, and that was just so much more. It's just a jingle. This is like a 3-minute piece of music that gets blasted into your face every time you want to watch a race, and I'm not really loving it, to be honest. I think it's way too over the top, as is a lot of the production, the modern production on F1 and such is a little too over the top for my liking.
No,
but that's
I agree.
how it is.
No, I completely agree, mate. You know, and that's why, you know, not to sort of bring it full circle in such a crude way, but that's why I like doing what we're doing. You know, we have a good laugh, we have a good time, we don't fill it with bells and whistles that are unnecessary. You know, when we broadcast these races, we just enjoy ourselves. We give people what they want to see. We just cover the racing, and it's the best thing you can do. You know, we can't put the frills on it. You know, we've not got billions of pounds to throw at this here at Simracersworld TV, but you know, we just provide the racing. We don't go with all the frills and all the messing about. We just get on with it. You know, we give you the info you need. We still make a bit of a show of it, but you know, me and Hasse can sit here with 8 hours of a race gone, with 4 hours of a race left to go, and still have very in-depth discussions. And we hope that you guys as well at home watching will get involved. Let us know what you think of Formula One in the modern age compared to maybe 20 years ago even, and how it has changed since then. It's about time we do a quick recap though. Scott McFall Sim District GT3 by Vibe BMS Esports lead the way. The number 45 car out in front once again. The number 4 machine of Jeremy DeBova is in second place. They are ahead of Dynamics Racing Pink, looking to hold on to second in the championship. Joshua Campfield is currently fourth now, behind the wheel of the other Sim District car, the number 2 Audi, and then Gus Franken is in 5th place for RP Motorsport Verde. Behind them, there hasn't been any change from the last time we looked at the positions, from what I know. Navarro de Bova, by the way, looks like he's out of the race as well, so we are down to just the 8 cars as is. So, if I mess with the championship standings based on where they are currently, this is without taking pit stops into consideration, because I know that we'll all be out of sync. Sim District GT3 by Vibe BMS Esports would obviously win the championship. Dynamics Racing Pink would finish second, but this number 4 Audi would actually jump up into 3rd place. Flemish Sim Sports would stay in 4th if they finished in 7th position. And Zenom Esports number 1, the 69 car, would move up to 5th, meaning Decimo BE will be in 6th position after coming into this one in 3rd. So big changes in the championship on the horizon here if this finishes as it is now.
Yeah, but that's to be expected as well if standings are close, and especially when people and when teams retire from the race, then it'll be a lot of points on the line all of a sudden. And I think a lot of the teams that are still running, that might have had their fair share of bad luck already this race, will be running because they know that that famous carrot at the end of the stick we were talking about earlier is very much still out there, in the form of points to be picked up for the championship at the end of it. Of course, there's also just the feeling of actually completing the damn thing in the end, even if it's thrown you a real fit along the way. And it's sometimes when you feel that you sort of conquer a race regardless of how much trouble it might have thrown away.
Yeah, that's it. You know, these races are never easy. You know, even a 3-hour race like you were covering yesterday, they're never easy. And to then times that by 4 and even just do 12 hours, you know, out of the 24-hour races we've done, you would get to the 12-hour mark and you would think, flipping heck, do we have to do another 12 hours? But it is that grueling. It really is. We're into the final third of the race now, and the shadows, as you can see, are becoming a lot more prominent here on the circuit. So the sun definitely going down. But right now, we have Kemal Yagizoglu in 3rd place. Jeremy DeBova in this McChallenge DB Audi, by the way. We were looking at it for a bit before. I can't stop looking at it because that new livery is very striking. But not only that, but they have moved up 7 places in this race so far. Started 9th on the grid. And even though it's a smaller field, you don't always see that much progress through these races. So they've done an absolute blinder here.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, we're loving it indeed, aren't we? And it takes your mind to a Big Mac, doesn't it, Chaz?
It does indeed.
I haven't had one of those for years and years. Perhaps the advertising is working its wonders on me, and it shall be time for me to visit the Golden Seagull indeed soon.
Well, I've been on a diet recently and lost nearly 2 stone in about a month and a half. But yeah, I must admit, I had a McDonald's the other day after having a bit of a naughty day, to be honest with you. But yeah, certainly the advertising is a good one at that. Now, in second place at the moment is a good place to be. They're 43 seconds ahead of Dynamics Pink, and after Flemish Sim Sports, we're right with the race leaders most of the way through this race. It's such a shame to see the car dropping a bit further down, but that's just endurance racing, I'm afraid. There's still a long time for it to change back, though, I guess. They could still swing it the other way.
Yeah, they could. They could. I mean, looking at the gap up ahead, they have been closing it, Chaz. It's now under half a minute. And while a lot of other cars are seeing the gaps open up, I think here for Flemish Sim Sports, it's closing up towards Sinam Esports. And who was it that we saw not too long ago have a bit of an incident as well, Chaz? Wasn't that the car in 6th place, Sinam Esports? I'm not quite sure, but I'm just thinking that it might just be. Yeah, I think so.
Let's have a look.
Jens Husens has had a few moments lately, so Thomas Leysens could very much be in it again. Yeah. I think we're seeing a few knocks on the front of the Lamborghini here as well.
Yeah.
Definitely a big dent. Looks like they drove into a light pole or something with that thing.
Looks like a Morgan.
Yes, it actually does.
And that's not a good compliment for a Lamborghini. But the light bar still works, though. That's all good.
Yeah, they must have placed it fairly a long way back, in the car itself for it to to still be working. Somehow magically.
Yeah, that's
even though when you look at it from a front, and that's also maybe a bit of an issue I have with the endurance lights, that maybe they should model them so they turn them on when it gets dark, or do you have a switch for them in the car or something to flick them on and off, because they're kind of sharp, especially at daytime, right?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. That's one thing that we've never had full control over in iRacing, is turning your headlights on and off. It's something that's been in sims like R Factor and Assetto Corsa Competizione for ages. But all of a sudden on iRacing, when you do, as we will here, you broadcast into the night with a race like this, the lights will all just come on at once, and it's a bit underwhelming, admittedly. And the way that the lighting works, the way that you've got this glint off the front of the car, you see it get brighter and brighter. I don't think it'd be that bright in daytime. It's one of the only things I really have a bit of a problem with in iRacing, unfortunately, is the rear lights look fine. It's just the headlights are that weird. Look at it. You'll see as well as the Porsche goes past us, the dots and the glint effect, it actually renders inside the side of the car, which it's one of my only gripes about iRacing.
I'm a pretty big iRacing fan altogether, but there is one thing that I would love for them to fix immediately, and that is the gravel.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, the gravel actually needs to stop cars. I did a bit of a sneak peek, but I've been doing some messing about with AI racing recently on iRacing. Ooh. And I set all of their skill and all of their smoothness and their optimism and everything to the most chaotic level I could. So they're the most overly confident but yet poorly skilled drivers in the world, and all of them were going into corners flat out, flying off the road everywhere, but not one of them slowed down at all during a single gravel trap. They just carried on going through the gravel, like turn 1 at Donington. We went straight on, kept it flat, still turned, and just even overtook somebody while he was in the gravel trap at turn 1 at Donington, because the gravel just doesn't slow you down. I would love to see cars stop and get caught in gravel traps and get beached. Because
yes, we've spoken about this before. Yeah. You could have some kind of hardcore mode where there is no towing, and if you get beached, that's it.
Safety car as well. That would mean that actually we get a proper automatic safety car on iRacing on road. And it needs to happen. The grass is fine because the grass doesn't really slow you down and it's slippy. Yeah, we get that. But we just need gravel traps that actually stop cars. Like they do it in Assetto Corsa. You know, why can't they do it here?
Yeah, I agree. And every time I drive on AC and go into the gravel trap, and the car just stops, you know, like, is it what? You brake in the gravel trap and it stops, unless you fly over it or something at 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's certainly, but also some of those moments where you just touch the gravel, and because it's so slippery, the car just goes. Whoop,
yeah.
just
rather than it dig in
the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely agree on that one. I can tell you that for free. Jeremy De Bova is into the pit lane now, and you see him there, all on his lonesome. We'll have a look at
the Mac challenge.
Yeah, we'll have a look at what the stint lengths look like for these guys, and yeah, 26 laps on that last stint. It's just that weird little stint in the middle that's sort of set them apart from the others. He comes out right behind the Zenami Sport Lamborghini, the number 69 car. But those stints so far, they look all right, to be honest. You know, there's not been anything out of the ordinary there. Race leader is currently doing a 20-lap run. And they are, well, I imagine by the end of this, they are going to be a pit stop ahead as well. So not only have they got the pace over everybody, but they're actually going to have a pit stop clear of everyone as well. It's just mad. But still, that's racing. And, you know, that's what we've come to expect from this team at the very top, isn't it? Excuse me. That's what we've come to expect from them. You know, we've seen it time and time again. They've just been untouchable sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, they have. They've been so strong, and they've been just showing that level time and time and time again. Every time these guys have been on as well, when I've been on commentating duties, they've been right near the front, unless they've been, of course, into some real headwind. But seeing as that is not really the case today, is it? It's going smoothly out ahead for the Sim District GT3 by Vibe BMS Esports. Here's the Bover. Rejoined in third after his pit stop here at Cemil Yakisoglu. 11.7 seconds up the road here, Chaz. And Joshua Campfield just about 25 seconds behind. So actually that battle for second, third and fourth is very much still a thing. It's very much still going on here.
Yeah, that's it. And we've seen some of these battles disappear for a bit and then sort of get reunited by pit stops happening and so on. Last time that Cemil Yakisoglu, if I get his name right, pitted was lap 200. Jeremy De Bova on lap 207, as we just saw there. So yeah, definitely still something going on with this one. Intriguing to see how that settles down and how they figure that one out. But it's been entertainment, that's for sure. Certainly been a lot going on through these races, or through this race at least so far. But we've still got quite a way to go.
And ever so often, I think what you see in these sort of races is also that the final 4 hours is always decisive, but it's also just when it becomes just that little bit harder, and you know, fatigue might be setting in for some of the drivers as well. They've been at it for a long time as well. If a team maybe have had a driver that hasn't gotten any proper rest or any real off time, things like these can creep in at the later stage of a race like this, and we'll just be crossing our fingers that it's not going to be happening to anyone out there tonight. We really want to see this battle for second, third, and fourth place come together, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we show you where they are on track at the moment, that is the spread. So they're not too far apart, to be fair. It's 11 seconds from Cemil Yakisoglu to the challenge by DB car in third, and then it's another 24 seconds back from them, which, to be honest, is not a big gap when you consider how long this race has been going on. I mean, you and I have both seen half-hour races where cars can be 24 seconds apart. So, bear in mind it's 8 1/4 hours have been done. Then it is certainly a good achievement, and it shows how close the pace is as well. It shows how competitive this field is.
Yeah, and it's always so nice to see, isn't it, with so many hours driven already, and at least just a part of the field still close together, and still actively having to really stay on it. And you know, the Mac Challenge car now out on fresh tires, they took half a second out of Circuit, actually 0.7 of a second out of the DynamiXX pink car on that last lap alone. So at that sort of pace, at the end of the hour here, they're going to be right on their behinds.
Yeah, and we know how quickly these guys can close in when they really want to as well. Now, funny thing to note as well is that obviously SDK, the software that we use for the timing and for the overlay, doesn't always pick up off tracks in a way that is accurate with what we get in the sim. So, to put this into context, let's have a look. Jens Goossens in the Zenem Esports 1 car, they are showing us having 108 off tracks so far in this race. To extend that, the DynamiXX pink car is apparently showing us having 226 off tracks, which I highly doubt. However, Scott McFall and Olivier Boultink, 516 off tracks according to SDK. Obviously that is when they just clip the outer limits of the track, which is curbs, you know, little tiny bits of runoff, all sorts.
I think it's because SDK might be registering some of the older track limits still. That's my theory, at least, is what it seems, because a lot of the track limits at Spa was revised at some point about a year or a year and a half ago, and ever since it's been a lot milder in terms of it's not a revolution. You can still pick up off tracks, but it's not as grotesque as it used to be. And what my theory at least is that that SDK still seems to register after the old very stringent track limits that certainly gave a lot of drivers a lot of gray hairs as well.
Yeah,
down
definitely.
to 11 seconds, by the way, Chaz, here between DynamiXX Pink and the car in third, the Mac Challenge machine. And further 25 seconds still down to the BMS Esports Netherlands car. But Jeremy de Boer here is doing a good job so far. Creeping within the 11 seconds here.
Yeah, it certainly is. But now you've got to think about what's this pressure going to be like from this Lamborghini behind them, the Zenem Esports car. Is that going to make a difference to what he does, or are they even on a similar pace? I mean, Jeremy de Boer did a 2:18.1 or 2:18.11. Jens Goossens did a 2:18.18. So very, very close in terms of the times. But is that because the latter, the number 69 car, is actually hanging back and maybe saving a bit of fuel behind them, because they are very close on the road?
No, and I think both saving fuel and just gaining a little bit extra speed there with the damage at the front. It would help them just staying in the slipstream for as long as they can. Seems like they're not too affected on the corner performance, but I would not be surprised if that big dent in the front of the car is not really helpful to the aerodynamic performance of the Zenem Esports Lamborghini. Indeed, Olivier as well, the 1995 win for McLaren was quite amazing as well, yeah.
Yeah,
1994, that was the Dower Porsche, wasn't it? And that was actually the first sort of year of the new regulations, and they were supposed to be rid of the Group C cars, and here comes someone building a Porsche 962 for the road, thus homologating it for GT1, and then going on to win Le Mans yet again in a car that, my god, perhaps actually that would rank, I think, at least to the best of my knowledge, as one of the most successful race cars ever, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And especially because the 956 and 962 wasn't too far apart as well, technically almost the same car. And if you count those two together, then it becomes really ridiculous all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And to think that it was still being competitive over 10 years after it was being created, that in itself was quite the achievement, it has to be said.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to think about the fact that while a car is being developed, you know, you don't always expect it to be the best that it can be straight out of the box, but it just was. You know, it was incredibly fast, and it was always competitive. You know, nobody could live with it. But when the 962 came along, it was just, yeah, even a separate ball game from the original car. It was great, really. Absolutely great. And Porsche, you know, they still continue to make very, very good race cars, and they always will, as far as we all know. You know, they are moving more towards the electric side of things with their sort of hybrid-based cars now. I know that a lot of the Porsche Panamera and Cayennes and even the Macans as well can be hybrid, and they've obviously got the fully electric Porsche Taycan, which is an incredible machine. Obviously, I'm slightly biased, but incredible, incredible machine. And they still have this this amazing heritage in motorsport that they continue to fulfill, you know what I mean?
Yeah, indeed. Have you actually driven a Taycan?
I have. I was grateful enough for Carl Hazelton, who is the dealership principal at Porsche Centre Chester. He was racing in the Porsche Club of Great Britain, which we broadcasted here on Simracersworld TV. And he had Porsche Centre Chester written on his car. Peter Mackay and I wanted to do a podcast about cars in the car on a motorway, talking about British stereotypes on the highways. And we joked that, you know, Carl would lend us a car for the day if we spoke nicely enough about him. So we were, whenever he lost a position, we were saying, oh, he's just letting him through. Things like that, you know. We spoke very highly of Carl. And then he actually got in touch and said, you know, if you're ever in Cheshire, then let us know. And I said, well, I live in Cheshire. So he was like, okay, what are you doing next Wednesday then? And Carl was very, very generous and allowed me to take his Taycan out for the afternoon. And what it was the Turbo S as well, 760 horsepower, 1,000 foot-pound of torque, unbelievable thing. Yeah, what an incredible car. But, you know, there's still not the infrastructure there, unfortunately, for electric cars, as everybody will tell you. But that's just as it is.
Still incredible performance that you get from these EVs nowadays. And something that was absolutely unheard of, at least when I was a kid. The thought of an electric motor on a car was kind of going to be like a wimpy electric motor, you know. That's certainly not the case nowadays.
No.
Great few laps here in corners just in itself being put in by Cemil Yagisoglu, sorry, who's really extending the advantage now. He's pushed back up to almost 12 seconds. That might be the Boover just pushing that slight bit too hard, maybe starting to get a little too much heat in the tires. I don't know how much the track temps has developed since last time we checked. But it's down to 26, so that's another 5 degrees off, Chaz, and we're really we're getting into the cool zone for the track here, and we're getting into what I would definitely consider to be double stinking territory here. And I think this is going to come good for the Porsche as well. It seems like they've been hooking it up a little bit better over the last few laps. Hooking it up nicely here, Cemil Yagisoglu onto the Paul Freire straight. Let's see just how he handles Blanchiment up into 6th gear, of course. That's damn near completely flat there, Chaz. Impressive indeed. Late braking, often using the white little dash there across the road as the brake marker. Brake just after that in towards the bus stop. And then up towards La Source. The source of all problems, as one of my friends once said. And it is indeed the source of trouble because of its blind nature. I'm getting a good run out here. Always so important. In through a Rouge. Carry as much speed as you possibly can safely through Radion. And then on to the camel straight through the kink. And funny how this kink seems to turn that little bit more than a lot of people seem to remember, Chaz, especially on lap 1 of, well, basically any race in iRacing with a lot of cars in it. How many times have we seen the worst of pileups on that very spot there?
Yeah, it's very easy to do one of two things. You can either stop it completely on the apex and over-rotate it on the little dip down that there is, or even in doing so, hit the inside wall and then you're stuck on the inside with cars going to your right and to your left, in front of you, behind you. Or you can overdo it, go in a little bit too hot and end up on the AstroTurf on the exit of the corner. Now there's obviously a massive concrete runoff over there, but off the edge of the curve there is a humongous AstroTurf section which you can easily light up the rear tyres on in a car like this, and most racing cars of course that are rear wheel drive. And then you can spit the car back over to the right hand side and hit the exit of the pit wall and or other cars in the process. And that's obviously when everybody's getting on the power to then come flying back down the hill. So it's certainly a treacherous place no matter what, but like I say, one of two things usually happen there. One of them is a miraculous clean start and the other is a big accident.
When you move further down the camel straight with the little kink there, and especially on opening laps of races as well, I've seen it so many times, at least for myself, that someone gets a really good run and they go too wide through the kink and they touch ever so slightly and everyone's come piling on at 240k an hour just behind with no possible chance of stopping. You're gonna wonder here if the Mac Challenge car just getting slightly distracted here by sorry, the presence of Jens Husens.
Yeah, and this is actually one of those moments where this car has actually been sort of clung onto the back of a number of machines in recent times, and yet again they find themselves with a big bright yellow Audi in front of them. It's not a bad car to look at, to say the least, but this slipstream is definitely helping them. I didn't notice earlier the little bit of damage on the right rear wing of that Lamborghini. I noticed it obviously on the front of the car, but I didn't notice that the rear wing was slightly bent in. I'm not sure if that has come from something else a little bit later down the line, but that is certainly not ideal, is it?
Certainly not ideal in any way either, and all the more reason to just stay behind the Audi here. I don't know if it's the sharp headlights of the Lamborghini or what it is, but it seems that the Mac Challenge car is just ever so slightly losing ground now. It's up to 12.5 seconds up to the DynamiXX pink car up ahead, so it's certainly going the way of the 88 Porsche, currently in second place.
Yes, indeed. We have the wonderful Porsche Sport in the chat. Great to see you back, guys. Obviously not the best of races for them today. We have lost another Porsche from the race since you last joined us, but we do have 3 in total. We have 2 in the race so far, and obviously one of them is in the pit lane, which is our wonderful pace car. Not a single scratch on it. The last time we'll see lap 217. Oh no. I love the sentiment from Porsche Sport. It's been fantastic. But you know, they've been one of our best supporters here on Simracersworld TV from the very get-go, and it continues to be that way until the very end. So 8 hours 26 minutes, to be fair, Hasse, in not that long. It'll be time for us to go, and we will bid you farewell for one final time on the channel, mate, and then Ed May will jump back in for the final couple of hours of this race.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it just actually dawned upon me as well, and it's gonna be sort of sad, to be honest, isn't it? It's gonna be a farewell after, what, 2.5 great years here on the channel that I have thoroughly enjoyed as well. So just remember it for the good things and not be too sad about the fact that it's ending, but it's nice to get the chance to come along here today and go out with a bang indeed.
Well, that's it, mate, and you know, it's always such a great pleasure to cover the DynamiXX Endurance Series. You know, we may not have a big grid out here. We've got 8 cars running now at the moment at Spa, which, you know, admittedly most people might turn off for, but we're here till the very end. We're going to crack on with this. and we're going to make the most of this racing because it is the last event that we will have broadcast on this channel. And I sincerely hope that you are all enjoying it so far. And it is great, you know, the amount of you that would stick around and that have stuck around throughout this. You know, we're very, very grateful for it. And, you know, I've had a long day of it already, but I will be seeing this through to the very end. And I will make sure that I have covered the first and last broadcasts on this channel.
And you'll have the wonderful company of Ed May to take over in not too long as well. About 15 minutes time, I guess that'll be. We had a blast of a time yesterday as well for the opening round of the virtual Draycott series here from Spa Francorchamps. You can say I'm well conditioned to this track, and I think any sim racing driver, any commentator will have, well, commentators usually drive as well, so and every single sim racer out there will have driven a multitude of races here at Spa. It's one of the go-to tracks, and it's one of the top favorites of so many drivers out there, just because of the way it flows and the sort of pure feel that is to it. It's one of the dare I say, one of the few tracks that hasn't really been ruined in terms of driving experience here. I'm definitely talking about something like Barcelona, which probably maybe wasn't the best track in the world to begin with, but that final sector chicane, for instance, oh my word. It's just an absolute mare to have to get a car through there as well in one piece, and let alone race someone there through there as well, which is nigh on impossible. So we're going to be thoroughly happy that it is here at Spa for the final broadcast on Simracersworld TV. Still Jens Goossens, who's just following around the Mac Challenge by DB car, currently in third place. On the hunt for the Porsche up ahead, but losing time, Chaz. Gap's now up to almost 13 seconds. And all the while, that Sim District by BMS Esports Netherlands cars creeping closer and closer as well. They're now within 25 seconds of the Audi ahead.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly it's working for them at the moment as they go hiding behind the trees. But yeah, I think they're in a good place right now. The 69 Zenem Esports Lamborghini, 5 places gained after starting 10th on the grid, up into the top 5. And at this stage, I think really, with how far the race is done, and with Dirk Bouts within 12 seconds behind them, they just need to stay here. They're not really getting held up by this Audi, are they? Doing 2:18.4s. Dirk Bouts did a 2:19.8 last time round, so you know it's keeping them on the pace. If the damage is actually holding them back at all, you know, the number 4 Audi could jump out of the way here, and we could see that Jens Goossens isn't actually, to be honest, it could be that he's not actually going to fall away, like the damage is that bad.
So far, he seems more than capable of keeping the current pace of the Audi. And I'm a bit surprised. It seems like they're not really able to take advantage of the cooling track conditions at the moment. Not really able to adjust the pace and just to increase the amount of push that they're giving it, basically. They can, it seems to me at least, that they can brake a little bit later, carry a little bit more speed, and just, you know, get a little bit more out of both track and car as the conditions move closer to what we at least would assume be optimal with the track cooling down here.
Yeah, that's it. You may as well just stay there and follow on right now. He's gaining another second on Dirk Bouts as well, so it's not like he's not making any progress further away. Here's Jens Goossens. We're 8.5 hours in. It's very, very quick indeed. I'm just having a look at the previous laps. 2:18.2 for Bultink, 2:17.7 for Yagizoglu, but when you're nearly 4 minutes behind, that individual lap difference isn't going to make much of a change, is it? Let's face it, that half a tenth. Just watching Jens Goossens then still chase down Joshua Campfield in terms of the overall race order anyway. But Campfield nearly 2 laps clear at the moment, and it's going very, very well for this Sim District team, considering as well the issue that they had earlier. You know, they were running second for a lot of it, had quite a big accident at Blochemont, like most cars have in this race, and they've come back well from it. Still a bit of damage on the car on that left-hand side, obviously, from the moment they had down here at Pouhon, and that is not the sort of place to have left-side damage, is it, Hasse? Because all that's going to do is drag that left side in even more every single lap.
Yeah, and you can sort of see it as well. It seems the car is just that little bit switchy, easy to get unsettled. It doesn't really seem that it likes to change direction all that much, as you would maybe expect. But as it also is with a car that's carrying a bit of damage, that as a driver, after a bit of time, you sort of just get used to it, and you kind of just drive it with the damage and figure out that it might be a little bit slower here and there, but a lot of the time, and skilled drivers especially, will be able to sort of drive around the damage and still be able to put in some decent lap times. But a place like Spa, especially if you're lacking top speed, that's gonna easily cost you a few tenths of that, and as we all know, that really equates in the end.
And that's the thing, you know, even if you are like just circulating in a race like this and you can feel a bit disheartened and a bit further off the pace or dead far down the field, you know, you still got to push, because you never know what issues could happen to the people ahead of you. I was talking to Ed and Marcus earlier about the fact that when I did this event, the 24 Hours of Spa in 2016, we were 5 laps down on the car ahead of us with like an hour left, and we beat them because they had a crash. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I've tried myself. I've been up against Sheldon van der Linde and his team in a Le Mans, where my team beat theirs as well through a bit of troubles there and back and forth, but we also did have an actual race with them along the way. But we did manage to keep our car in one piece for almost the entirety of the race, which they didn't, and that also just gave us the upper hand. All of a sudden, I was able to lap actually quicker than a pro race driver because I had the car for it, and that was that was certainly something that gave a great deal of confidence, and to see that you know, oh, you're actually able to not only keep up with, but actually, you know, drive away from a pro driver like that. Only in iRacing and a few other sims, but mainly in iRacing, I'd say, is where that stuff happens.
Just watching Martin Deckens now to see if there's any hints of this Lamborghini being off pace from what we see visually. He's doing 2:18.0, so certainly when you look at the numbers, it's looking good. Just some of the cars I've noticed, they're not looking as comfortable as they were before. Some of the revs are a little bit lower in certain parts of the circuit, or at least it sounds like it. Maybe I'm just hearing things, but yeah, it's certainly still great to see these GT cars absolutely nailing it around, but yeah, it's just a shame that, you know, sometimes we do lose the numbers over a course of a race like this. It's very attritional.
Yeah. It tends to be here at Spa. It tends to be, you know, the mistakes seep in, and at some point you just get something wrong enough, and the consequences are there for everyone to see on a few of the cars that are still running, and definitely on the cars that aren't running anymore.
Kemler Yagizoglu, though, looking good in this Dynamics pink car, and again, it's a similar performance by these guys, isn't it, that we've seen before, where they can not really string too much together in terms of qualifying, but then when it comes to the race itself, they've just got great pace and great consistency. You know, they move through the pack really well, don't they, and just keep the car nice and clean. That's been so paramount to their championship so far, and they would be only the second team this season to get over 100 points if this race finished as it is. And speaking of doing that, actually, I am updating the standings as they are, because there's a number of cars shifting around and moving about. There's no changes since the last time I mentioned it, so it would be Sim District GT3, Dynamics Racing Pink, McChallenged by DB. They would move up into 3rd place, then Flemish, and then the 69 car of Zenom Esports. That would be the championship standings. The top 5 at least, if it finished where it is. Just listen to that Porsche. Sounds amazing going down what is the old start-finish straight, or at least the endurance start-finish straight once again. And then back up the Camel straight. Seems a bit lonely on track right now. I think this is the prime moment to really see that this race has been an attritional one. That we have so far lost 5 cars from this race. We still have Christoph Willems in the number 3 Tri-Racing Porsche running at the back of the field. And again, another team that's just plugging away, just pushing and pushing and pushing, doing lap after lap after lap, doing everything they can. And it is exactly what you need to do. They are currently 8th in the race, which would give them 20 points in the championship. I think I alluded to this earlier, but that would almost double their points tally. They're on 21 points so far up to this stage. But Hasse, we only have about 10 minutes left of this section of the broadcast, mate. It's incredible how quickly that's gone. Not a bad race so far, considering the grid size, is it? To be honest with you, we've still got plenty to think about, plenty to look at, and a long way to go still.
Yeah, absolutely so, and a lot of stuff will still be happening in the final 3 hours and a bit of this race. And especially something that we haven't really spoken about. You've mentioned it with the shadows getting longer and stuff, but now we see the sun is really beginning to fall low in the Belgian summer sky. It looks like a warm day in the Walloon Ardennes. But indeed, and actually I'm not gonna say too much, but is it gonna be properly dark before the flag falls on the race here, Chaz? What do you make of it?
Well, 5 to 7 in the sim itself. 3 hours left to go still. I think it will be just getting pitch black by the time that the race finishes, I reckon. I think we'll be under headlights for maybe the last half hour, 40 minutes.
You think that the fact that they're going to do such a short amount of time... Oh, it's Christoph Willems almost gets it all wrong there for Tri-Racing. Coming out of Stavelo 2 there. It's an easy mistake to make as the car wants to wash wide. And you just push it that little bit too far wide. You get over the sort of edge as the curb ends there. There's all of a sudden grass on the outside, and it's... there's not a lot of traction out there, is there?
No, not one bit. You know, drivers push so hard through there because it's important to get a run up to Blanchimont. And you do see guys run wide. You know, they take a few liberties with the curbs maybe and just push the car to its absolute limit. And that was just a little bit too far there by Christoph, but skilled enough to save it from a complete spin and obviously potential contact with the barriers, because especially around that part of the circuit, that's always a possibility when you are pushing on the limit around there. And we look now at another Porsche further up the field, the Kamil Yagizoglu car, Dynamics Pink, doing very well indeed. Number 88 machine, still 1 lap at least behind Olivier Bultink. If we actually have a look, Olivier's just there coming down out of Bruchet. I'll show you the physical gap. Bearing in mind they're already 1 lap ahead of them over this. There is another, what, 2/3 of a lap there difference as well? Maybe 2/3, I'd say. But
yeah,
still much. Quite the gap. looking at Olivier Boulting, though. I mean, the way this car has progressed and the way they've continued to move forward is amazing. You know, the season so far has been 5 wins from 5 for them. You know, no sign of being stopped by anybody. There were little moments here and there, the odd spin, but that's just tiny, tiny moments throughout the season. And I think.
And you want to? Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, when you take the whole thing, considering that it's just a 2-man team, you take the whole thing into consideration. They are really a force to be reckoned with, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also just often a sign of a bit of class that the kind of, when you make a mistake, that it's a small one. It's just a spin. It's not a massive collision somewhere. You know, a spin is going to cost a few seconds, but if you have a lead of a lap or two, then it's not really going to make much of a difference in the end, is it? You could just sort of get back on and get in your stride again and go on as it was, you know. Whereas if you make a massive mistake or really get it wrong somewhere and throw it into the wall, that's something entirely different there. But impressive to see how a team so far has gone through the season doing nothing but winning. There's just one last obstacle to get over and one last trophy to put in the case for the Sim District GT3 by BMS Esports. Impressive indeed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the fact that, you know, you'll see a team like this in this championship, and we'll probably see them in other series as well where they will team up in this car, but you'll see differences in the way that they behave. You know, like the way that they behave dependent on the pack that they're racing against. You know, these guys are not egotistical in any way. I mean, if you see the chat from earlier in the broadcasts from parts 1 and 2, Olivier and Scott were both really hoping for a good fight with Porsche Sport and some of the guys around them. You know, they really wanted the battle, but it just hasn't come to them, unfortunately. Their pace has just been completely on it.
Yeah, and when you're up against a team like that who's just head and shoulders above everybody else, I think most of the rest of the teams will have realized this early on as well. There isn't really anything to do about those guys up there, you know. They're just going to be sort of doing their own thing at the head.
One more up the hill lap, 226 for Olivier Boulting and Scott McFall. And it's getting close to time for us to sign off. Ed May has put a very scary Terminator gif in the chat saying he's back, and he will be back on air with us in about 10 minutes time. We are going to give you all one final, and Porsche Sport will like this if they're still there, one final playthrough of the song Black and White as a countdown, so you get it without us talking over it. We will also play it at the end because we know that that song has been quite powerful throughout the people that have watched our broadcasts. You know, we've always had intros and countdowns to that song, and Arc by Star Party and Zookeepers. It's been part of the channel from pretty much the very start, and we continue to have it as part of our broadcasts until the very end.
And indeed, it'll be time for me to sign off for good as well here on the channel. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining in with me on so many different occasions. To all of you that have done so, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been so much fun, whether it's been NASCAR, whether it's been Belcar or the SRW GT Series. Had F3 on the menu. So many good races. So much good stuff. It's gone under the bridge. And so yeah, thanks for now from me. It's been a great pleasure. And chances are, since I'm still out there, that you will probably see each other again just somewhere else.
Well, Hasse, let me just say as well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, obviously, to meet you through this channel and, of course, work together all the times we have. It's been fantastic fun, and what a great time to have together on this last one as well, mate. You know, it's been great. It really has.
yeah, I can only say the same. We've had a lot of fun times together over the last couple of years here. And it's been a great learning experience as well. Coming in with a true professional like yourself, Chaz. It's been amazing.
Thank you, mate.
So thank you so much for having me as well. Yeah, and indeed, I'll be seeing you in not too long as well as we go on with even another round of the Formula 1 Championship that I'm really enjoying taking part in, except for the fact that I keep on trashing it in turn 1 every race. I have a clean 3 out of 3 record so far. I'm hoping to make it around the first lap without wrecking it.
Well, I hope you can do, mate. I hope you can do. But honestly, Hasse, thank you very much, mate. It's been a pleasure as always, man. And I will see you again very, very soon. For now as well, from me and this part of the broadcast, everybody, it is going to be goodbye. But thank you for watching part 3. Again, it has been another pleasure here. Chaz Draycott and Hasse Rømer with you for the 12 hours of Spa Francorchamps. And we will see you again in just a few minutes when Ed May joins me back in the box.